An engineer can estimate cost. Project manager will determine the exact cost to get bids, etc. That's what they do. That's what your project manager will do. That's why if you're looking to be project manager, you do need to learn the ropes on that. That's what we're talking about. You need to know that you can talk to these people, that we can go ahead and get bids. We can go ahead and make sure that those bids are not overinflated. Timelines aren't inflated. Verifying timelines. There's stuff happening in the back end of the business, obviously, but again, those are hiring the professionals to do what they do best. Now, some engineers can and will be project manager. Write that down. Remember, guys, I said that when you involve the professionals, they got vested interest? What do you think would happen if you told an engineer, hey, check us out, Mr. Engineer, let's go meet at the property, okay? Just say if you went to go meet at the property, or you sent somebody. They sat there, they looked at the property. Okay, Mr. Engineer, here's all the land. Here's the couple hundred acres. Now, look, we're buying this for $10,000 an acre, and you tell me what you think it's going to be worth once we get it to commercial. And he'll say, well, it's actually going to be mixed use because industrial can be on the back, commercial will be on the front. He's like, this commercial will easily go for $15 a square foot. Don't you think the engineer's calculating this in his head? Of course he is. He knows what the value is. He doesn't do it because he's programmed. He's an engineer. Broker doesn't do it. Program. They're brokers. That's the way it works. All right? Think out of the box. So now if you said to the engineer, well, Mr. Engineer, look, you're obviously local here. You know a lot of people, don't you? You know other project managers. You know other appraisers. You know who to go to get this done. Is that correct? I know everybody. I've lived here. I'm third generation. Okay. I know everybody. My cousin is actually an appraiser. Oh, really? How would you like to have a piece of this to be my project manager? Well, what do you mean? Well, I'll go ahead and give you a piece of this whole deal in exchange for you and your services, and also you tapping into the professionals. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Does it, guys? Okay. Are you with me this morning? Okay, good. Good. All right. Don't sleep too hard on the pillow. All right. So because of that, when we give vested interest to people, do you think now he's going to want to go ahead and get that thing done? Walk it through, make it happen? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a bit of advice. And not only that, when a lender sees that type of person on your team and they say, okay, let me see your team. Here's my team. Wow. How much has this guy built? 3 million square feet. Wow. Okay. It's done. So you need to be a creative problem solver, not just a system analyzer. Okay? That comes to being doers. Okay? And that's what engineers do. Determine with a broker and engineer the highest and best use for the land. Always create what is in demand, and it will sell. Okay? It will sell. Carve larger parcels into smaller parcels, which is called a tract split. You want to check with the city and make sure that they can do that. That's one way to get a value bump when it comes to land. You can do a tract split. Zoning is the first. Okay? Zoning is one. That's when you go ahead and change the zoning, and you go ahead and make a boatload of money that way. The next is to go ahead and carve larger parcels into smaller parcels. You can create lots with land or pads, commercial mobile home parks, RV parks. What do you think that is, guys? That's nothing more than land, and then what they do is they carve these, they just make these little pads, these little pad sites. And then people bring in their little Airstream or what have you. They drive in there and they park it, and then they kick off the wheels, and it's stable. All right? That's what it is. Those are pads. And then you can sell those pads, or you can rent out those pads. What would you rather do? Sell the pads or rent them out? Sell them. Somebody says rent them out. Guys, I'll tell you right now, like I said before, Trump's buildings in New York, for the most part, most of those buildings and most of the buildings in New York are all on land leases. The land underneath it, somebody else owns in a different country or even in this country. But the thing about it is, if you can do a build-to-suit, or you can go ahead and rent it out, why not go ahead and keep it? Don't you think the land value is going to go up? When you rent it, the money is going to cover your deficiency, and it should, okay? Now, create a subdivision that's a plat map or a PUD for land, plan unit development. And when you go ahead and get those plans approved, like I said before, rubber stamp hits the napkin, the value skyrockets through the roof. Because now what you've done is you've taken a local engineer, you've asked them, what's the highest and best use? And they say, highest and best use for this property is going to be 200 multifamily on the front, another 200 multifamily on the back, a subdivision of an enclave of gated homes on the back of that, maybe 100 homes, and then some industrial and self-storage way, way, way on the back of the property. And you go ahead and get that stamp, that means that the city's approved it. The city would like to see that there. That doesn't mean that you have to go build or develop, folks. Okay? Understand this. What that means is you just got the plans approved, and you can take that paper, that plan, and you can say, this is approved for this, and go ahead, and that's when you throw it on LoopNet, or you go ahead and give it to that one broker that sits back in that big leather chair, and you go ahead and give it to them that has a buyer's list, and you go ahead and sell it then. And you can sell it and make yourself a boatload of money and retire for life. All right? Okay. Sounds good, he says. Okay. That's one way to do it, but we want to focus on the cash flow. I'm just getting through this because I want you guys to understand you can make money with land. The cost for the site plan to receive preliminary city approval is cheap. It is. Cost to get final city approval can be tens or hundreds of thousands for all the engineering work required, but cheaper than developing or building. So what that means, like that project that I had mentioned, the annexation period, guys, it could have costed hundreds of thousands of dollars even though we tied it up for $50K. But we knew that it was going to take way too long, and they just weren't pro-growth because the property's still sitting now and nobody else is taking it to that level. So we recognized that early. Now, I did that again for you, so you don't have to do that. Now I make simple phone calls. I have my engineers. I go ahead, I have my team facilitate the right deals, and if it's not a go, it's not a go. And if it's a go, it's a go. So we want to get out there and focus on the low-hanging fruit, the deals we can do with speed and ease, okay? Speed and ease. The city process is often done in this order, both for preliminary and final plat approval. So write this down. I want you to make a note here. Make a note too. Number one, guys, number one is tech review. It has to go by tech review. They need to look at that thing and see that it meets their standards. They need to check it out. It's called tech review. Next one is planning commission. It needs to go by the planning commission, not to be associated with the coastal commission, like out here in California. Coastal, I remember I asked you guys, what do you think it takes to run utilities 2 miles? And the answer is, who cares? We're not doing it. Anybody know how long it takes to get something approved with the coastal commission? You get the same answer. Okay? Doesn't matter. They take forever. It's worse than watching paint dry. The paint never dries. All right? City council vote. They need to get in there and they got to vote. Now, there's things that you can do to entice them to get their vote approved. If you're going to be doing something like a shopping center, for instance, and the shopping center, the facade on the shopping center, if you're here from California, a lot of times people want to get in there and make the ultra modern, you know. They're going to do that real smooth cement look with the chrome, and they think it's all cool, right? You go put that in a place like New Mexico. See if they think how cool it is. They don't want that. They want Southwestern flair, right? In a lot of areas, build what's in demand. Remember I said that? Make a note on that, guys. Always mirror what's existing in the area. Don't try to be somebody who's going to come in and do something entirely different. Now, don't confuse that. Don't confuse that with somebody that I think very highly of, and his name's Frank McKinney. And Frank McKinney is somebody who goes and does things entirely different. Who knows who Frank McKinney is? Yeah, he looks like David Lee Roth from Van Halen. That guy's cool. What he does is he goes and he buys burnt-out homes on the ocean front only. And they got to be big, huge lots. And he'll go in there and he'll make them all ultra-modern and really cool. They're architecturally designed, and they're just, I mean, from top to end, they're just, he's got tons of books out there, Frank McKinney. And he's somebody who's getting out there and doing something new, okay? Because he's trying to make it something sexy for people. Now, we don't need to go do that. What we need to focus on is the low-hanging fruit. If you're going to get in there to go ahead and put a facelift on a shopping center, and guys, it's nothing more than Las Vegas-style facelift. You know, behind Vegas, you look behind, it's all sticks holding stuff up. It's the same kind of thing. You just go up there and they just tack up a new facade. It's nothing, guys. You don't have to go rebuild a whole new building. Thank you very much. So that's one thing that we got to keep in mind, definitely, is that we go ahead and build what's in demand. Okay, so page 62. Page 62. All right. So development involves actual construction. It does, guys. And for the record, we're not builders and we're not developers, are we? No, we're not. Remember, we're facilitators and problem solvers. So because of that, we should know exactly what development, what's entailed when we talk about development, but we don't want to get out there and look as a developer. Somebody asks you, are you a developer? Are you a builder? They're looking to go ahead and sell you approved plans. And if you go ahead and take those approved plans and you're trying to send them through our portal, it's going to stop unless it meets a certain criteria, which you should know by now, which is free and clear, JV motivated, prime commercial. And if it's improved and entitled and ready to go, just like the Vegas project I shared with you, that's all fine and dandy. But it must be free and clear, and it must be ready to go. So horizontal. To do horizontal, it's this way, side to side. First thing you need to do is some clearing. I showed you San Antonio. I'm going to share it with you. San Antonio had a lot of bushes and trees. That's just clearing. Then there's grading. And by the way, you can add grubbing in there too. G-R-U-B-B-I-N-G, clearing and grubbing. And that just means they got these big machines with gnashing teeth that comes in and they go take out all the bushes and all the little trees and stuff. And then what they do is they clear the land, and then they go ahead and grade it. Now, grading is something that's an art, because if it's too flat, then it doesn't have runoff. If it's too steep, then they got to add it here. If it's too steep, they got to add it here. Follow what I'm saying? And if it's too weird like this, then it's going to cost more money to grade it. So just keep that in mind. But again, if you guys are making the type of money in land that can be made in land, and that is your mission statement, which we're doing cash flow property here, you can still get in there and make some money, all right? Make a lot. You want to add additional access, meaning access points throughout the property. You just don't have one in. You want to have multiple access points. Add utilities. Now, utilities can be up to site. They can be butted up to site. And if they're not, you just better check out and see how far away these utilities are. Curbs, streets, gutters, sewer. Write that down. Curbs, streets, gutters, sewer. All right? Curb, street, gutter, sewer. That's horizontal. That's infrastructure, guys. Infrastructure. Write that down next to horizontal. Infrastructure. So when we're talking about going into property, and if they require you to put in some infrastructure before you can sell those pads, we want to have them define that in detail. What exactly are you talking about? And then say, okay, now give me a cost estimate on what it's going to take to get your minimum infrastructure in, so that way I can go ahead and factor that into my deal, put that in the scope of work. And guys, this should all be done through pre-contract due diligence. How much money do we spend in pre-contract due diligence? Goose egg, that's right, Zippo. All right? Too many people move forward on deals, get them under contract, then go find out this information. Don't be a newbie in that regard, okay? Let's do it together. All right. Vertical. That's just going straight up. That's development for going straight up. All right? Now, when we go ahead and go straight up, most people think that's going to be the largest value bump ever. And a lot of times it's not. It's not. You can make money going vertical, and that's bringing in a developer, and a co-developer is what I like to call it. Okay, I don't call them actually bringing in developers. I bring them in as a co-developer. That's what I call it. Because if you say that you're going to be bringing in a developer, what are you telling the seller or broker? Not only that, but you're telling them, yeah, that you're not, or that you don't have anybody on your team, more importantly. And when you go ahead and phrase certain things, the psychology of it is, we're going to bring in, so they're not there already? We're going to bring in a co-developer, somebody aside from our team, that best fits this development of the project that we can do with speed and ease. Okay? With a combination of the seller's willingness, we can get this done in a very short period of time. A lot shorter than somebody else doing it the wrong way, which will ensure you to get paid out sooner. That's the psychology behind what we're doing. All right. Extra profit tips. Reduce taxes, remove structures, and farm it. You can. I had a project that was right outside of Denver. Who here is from Denver? Anybody? Oh, yeah, you guys are from Denver. Well, I don't need to tell you, DIA, right? Denver International Airport, all the development around it. Yeah? Is there any land left around that now? Tons? Is there still? I'll tell you, I had a turf farm under contract, and this turf farm was producing, just like it says, you can farm it for land, reduce taxes, remove structures, and farm it. And there was so much income pulling from this turf farm. They were ready to do development. It was right next to DIA. We're ready to do the development, but the situation is they were making so much money off the turf, growing the turf, and it's really crazy. Turf looks like, you know, those alien landing pads. They're pretty cool. And we ended up passing on that, but Denver's still a hot area. There's a lot of development happening. They're bringing in the huge, whatever they called it, like T-Rex infrastructure that ran all the way down to past Colorado Springs, correct? And I think they're pretty close to being completed with that. So when you know that the city's pro-growth and they're putting, when a city's going to expand a highway, is that something to look at on an area? Absolutely, because you know that they're pro-growth or pro-development. There also could be some development incentives. Write that down. Development incentives for areas that are showing growth. Development incentives for areas that are showing growth. Request tax abatements, okay? Tax abatements, meaning they'll go ahead and give you some relief. Gain options on surrounding properties. This is huge. Huge. Look, I'll tell you right now, if John here was doing business with Frank, John's a developer, and he knew that Frank was going to be developing some land, and there's an additional 100, 200, 300 acres adjacent to it. So John decides to go ahead and take on one to develop. I think that these two guys are going to want to know these other two 100-acre tracts, who's going to get them. They're going to want to go ahead and jump all over them. Tying up property with options. Same thing in residential. You can get an option contract, an option to purchase at a later date. A lot of times these people that own this land, they're just, sometimes they're savvy, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're motivated to go ahead and get some cash because land isn't cash flowing. So they might have a need to go buy another house. They might have a need to go buy a car. They might have maybe their daughter just had a baby. They want to take a well-deserved vacation. And what they have is this piece of land, but they're holding on to it, and they know it's going to be worth a bunch of money later, and they just can't get rid of it, and they just don't want to equity strip. They're just holding on to it because that's their goose, you know, their golden goose. So if you go ahead and approach these people and you say, look, do you need any cash now? Can you wait a little bit? They may say, yeah, I can wait. Well, what do you want for the property? And if you negotiate it, let's say down to $5 million, and then you know that once Frank's done with his development and John's done with his development, this land is going to be worth more like 15 on the low end. You can go ahead and give them their $100,000 and have an option to purchase it in 24 months with no payment, no interest. And the development will be taken care of way before 24 months. And then you just exercise your option to purchase, or what you can do is flip the contract. Okay? You guys understand that theory? Happens all the time, guys. Happens all the time. Optioning and flipping contracts is very, very common in this business. Make a lot of money with it. I poke around on a bunch of different websites. One of the websites that I like to poke around on, which we'll get to websites later, is Craigslist. Yeah, heard a chuckle. Craigslist. Now, Craigslist, you think that there's not a lot of stuff on there. I find tons of property on Craigslist. A lot of times people are upside down on taxes, and they just want to give me the property for free. For free. And I've had parcels just handed to me on golf courses. And the guy's like, look, you can just have it. Just pay the taxes. What's the back taxes? $3,000. You can have the property. I decide if I want to take it or not. Okay, what's the address? Where's it at? I'll get back to you if I'm interested. And that's that. So don't think that you can't jump into commercial property. It's plentiful. I walk away from deals just because I don't want them sometimes. All right? It's just what it is. Now, Craigslist is very popular. I just mentioned somebody, Frank McKinney. He actually had a property listed on there. And it wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. So these type of places that people put on there, they know that there's people under the radar that are just poking around and people run into it. So you want to go ahead and get with the times. Now here, generate income from land. Farming and agricultural, you sure can. Signs and billboards. We talked about Pizza Hut. What did they pay? 12 million bucks. Pizza Hut. San Antonio, it's all interstate. Like I said before, since it's all interstate, you can put 2, 3, 4 signs on that thing, whatever the city will permit. Think about the revenue. Cell towers. Cell towers. Storage. You can put storage. Now, I'm not talking about building self-storage. And I'll tell you guys right now, for the record, remember, we're not builders and developers. I would always, always prefer to take over a non-income producing asset in a good area that I can get up to market rent versus going in there and building something from scratch. For the record, I would always prefer to take over existing debt than to create new debt, as long as the terms are right. You guys get that? That is so important. So many people look and they're out in la-la land thinking that you're going to go ahead and take some property and build this humongous city. That's not reality. Reality is find something that's already existing and just put it to its highest and best use. It's like thrift shopping, although I don't thrift shop. But get my point. Get something that's existing and just make it shine. Shine it up. And it'll produce. It'll produce the income, all right? Campgrounds as well. Campgrounds, people pay. I don't know if you guys have been up to Kern County. There's a place called Alligator Rock up there. You can catch tons of fish. One of my uncles used to bring me up there to go fishing when I was a kid. And these campgrounds, they're not totally cheap. I mean, it costs money to camp. And certain places now on land, what they're doing is, and I'm going to talk about this property outside of Fort Worth when we get to mineral rights, but this same property that I'm going to talk about with mineral rights that I mentioned yesterday, guys, the plan that we had was bringing in these estate homes. And there was already existing estate homes, but estate homes. On the back end of the property, because the golf course was rolling, on the back end of the property, it was hidden back here. But all the infrastructure was already set. And you could take golf courses over there. And you could also do horseback riding over there. And it was just all flat and buildable with utilities. So we said, look, weekend warriors, they want to come out. They want to have access to golf carts. They could go ahead and park back here, set the pads up, go ahead and let them park. These people are bringing in $250,000 RVs, $500,000 RVs. Some of these things are ridiculous, right? So they go ahead and they pull up, camp out, just put a nice structure there, run our water there for showers and everything else. And they got plenty of showers and sunken in tubs in these things too. They're amazing. But my point being is, think about what we can go ahead and charge for those pads for people to go ahead and drive up and park there and then golf, hang out, and then leave. That's just additional revenue. So you can create revenue, cash flow from land, and that's one addition other than campground.